In 2019, a NATO peacekeeping unit discovered something beneath a collapsed Bavarian church that the German government still refuses to acknowledge. This is what they found. Before we begin, if you enjoy deep-dive horror stories that'll keep you up at night, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't regret it. Now, let's get into this. My name is Marcus Hale, and I was a combat medic with the 173rd Airborne Brigade. What I'm about to tell you happened during a routine reconnaissance mission in the Bavarian forest near the Czech border. It was late October 2019, and we were part of a joint NATO training exercise. Nothing unusual, just war games and coordination drills with German Bundeswehr units. I've been deployed twice to Afghanistan, seen my share of blood and chaos. I thought I understood fear. I thought I knew what it meant to feel unsafe in my own skin. I was wrong.
The village was called Schwarzgrund, black ground. Even the name should have been a warning. It wasn't on most maps, just a cluster of abandoned stone houses deep in the forest, accessible only by a single dirt logging road that hadn't been maintained in decades. Our convoy of 3 Humvees rolled in just after dawn, fog still clinging to the valley like a burial shroud. The air smelled wrong. Not just damp earth and pine. There was something else underneath. Something organic and rotten. "Jesus, this place is creepy as hell," said Corporal Danny Reeves, our driver. He was 23, from Ohio, always cracking jokes to break tension. Not that morning. That morning, his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Our unit commander, Captain Lisa Erdmann, a German liaison officer, sat in the passenger seat studying a topographic map. She was mid-40s, steel gray hair pulled back tight, eyes that rarely blinked. Professional. Cold, even. But I saw her jaw tighten as we passed the first house. Every window was broken, not just cracked, shattered outward, as if something inside had tried to escape. "Radio silence," Captain Erdmann said quietly. "We observe only, document structural integrity for the exercise report, and move on." The mission was simple. Survey the abandoned village to determine if the buildings could be used for urban combat training. Simple. Routine. Boring. Except nothing about Schwarzgrund felt routine. We dismounted in the village square, a small courtyard of cracked cobblestones surrounding a dry fountain. The statue in the center had been defaced, its features chiseled away until it was just a faceless stone figure with arms raised, as if warding something off. Sergeant Mike Torres, our squad leader, gestured for us to spread out. "Hale, you're with me. Reeves, Jenkins, check the eastern houses. Stay on comms." The silence was oppressive. No birds, no insects. Just the whisper of wind through broken shutters and the crunch of our boots on gravel. And then I saw the church. It stood at the far end of the village, partially collapsed. The bell tower had fallen inward, punching through the nave roof. But it was the door that made my stomach tighten. A massive wooden door, still intact, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. Not crosses, something older. Circular patterns that seemed to spiral inward, carved so deep the wood had split in places. "Torres," I said, pointing. He followed my gaze and swore under his breath. "Erdmann, you're seeing this?" The captain approached, her boots clicking on stone. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw something flicker across her face. Not quite fear. Recognition, maybe. "This church isn't on our documentation," she said slowly. "It shouldn't be here." "What do you mean it shouldn't be here?" Reeves called over the radio. "It's right fucking there!" "It means," Erdmann continued, her voice tight, "that according to our records, Schwarzgrund never had a church, just residential structures and a schoolhouse." The wind picked up, and I swear I heard something. A low vibration, almost below the threshold of hearing. Like a bass note held too long, resonating in my chest. Torres keyed his radio, Command, this is Sierra 3 Actual. We've located an undocumented structure at the target site, requesting guidance on... Static burst through the channel, harsh and metallic. Underneath it, for just a moment, I thought I heard a voice. Not words, just a sound like someone trying to speak through water. Command, do you copy? Torres tried again. Nothing but static. Erdman pulled out her satellite phone. Dead. She checked her watch. The digital display was scrambled, numbers flickering randomly. Equipment malfunction, she said, but her voice had lost its certainty. That's when Reeves screamed.
We found him in one of the eastern houses, pressed against a wall, hyperventilating. Jenkins stood beside him, rifle raised, aimed at an open doorway leading to a cellar. What happened? Torres barked. There's something down there, Jenkins whispered. His hands were shaking. Jenkins was a veteran, 2 tours in Iraq, steady as they come. I'd never seen him shake. Something like what? I don't know, Sergeant, but it's moving. I approached the doorway carefully. Stone steps descended into darkness. The smell hit me immediately. That same organic rot, but stronger now, concentrated. The smell of something that had been dead for a long time, but somehow hadn't stopped decaying. Erdman appeared beside me with a flashlight. We need to clear it, she said. Protocol. Protocol? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Captain, something is wrong here. We should pull back, re-establish communications. We clear the structure, Medicale. That's an order. She descended first. I followed, every instinct screaming at me to run. The cellar was larger than it should have been. The stairs went down at least 20 feet, far deeper than the foundation of the house above. The walls were stone, slick with moisture, and covered in more of those spiral symbols. They seemed to move in the flashlight beam, writhing like living things. And at the bottom, the cellar opened into a chamber. No, not a chamber. A tunnel. It stretched beyond the reach of our lights, carved roughly through bedrock. Support beams lined the passage, old timber that looked medieval, held together with iron brackets corroded to rust. This is a mine shaft, Erdman said, but there was no conviction in her voice. Mines don't have these, I said, pointing to the walls. The symbols continued down the tunnel, but they changed, became more complex, layered. In some places they'd been scratched over repeatedly, as if someone had tried to reinforce them or keep something out. And then I saw the first message. It was carved into a support beam in what looked like German, but old German. Gothic script I could barely read. I pulled out my phone, used the camera light to get a closer look. Haltet es gefangen, lass niemanden hinein. Keep it imprisoned. Let no one enter. Captain, I said quietly. She was already reading it. Her face had gone pale. We're leaving, she said suddenly. Everyone up, now. But Torres was already 20 feet down the tunnel, flashlight sweeping the darkness. Sarge, get back here, I called. He didn't respond, just stood there, beam pointed at something I couldn't see. Torres! Erdman's voice cracked like a whip. He turned slowly. In the backwash of his flashlight, I saw his face. His expression was slack, eyes unfocused, mouth slightly open, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. Do you hear it? He whispered. Hear what? I was moving toward him now, hand on my sidearm, even though I didn't know what good that would do. The breathing. And then I heard it too. Slow, rhythmic, the sound of something massive inhaling and exhaling, coming from deep within the tunnel. But it wasn't just coming from ahead. It was all around us, echoing off the walls, making it impossible to tell the direction. Out! Erdman grabbed Torres by his vest and physically hauled him backward. Everyone out, now! We scrambled up those stairs, boots slipping on damp stone, the breathing growing louder behind us. Or was it ahead? I couldn't tell anymore. It was everywhere, filling my head, making my teeth ache. We burst into daylight and didn't stop running until we reached the vehicles.
We should have left then. Should have gotten in those Humvees and driven until Schwarzgrund was a memory. But Captain Erdman made a call I still don't understand. We need to document this, she said, hands shaking as she lit a cigarette.
I'd never seen her smoke before. "Whatever's down there, it's a security concern. Could be old munitions, chemical weapons from World War II. We document, then we report." "That wasn't chemical weapons," Reeves said flatly. "That was something alive." "There's a rational explanation." "Then you go back down there and find it," Jenkins snapped. Erdman stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to the church. "We'll check the main structure. Maybe there are records, documents explaining what this place was." The church door resisted at first, swollen with moisture. It took 3 of us to force it open, hinges screaming like wounded animals. Inside was worse than the tunnel. The nave was a disaster of collapsed timber and shattered stone. Pews lay overturned, some splintered as if struck with immense force. But it was the altar that stopped us cold. It had been destroyed, not weathered or decayed, deliberately smashed to pieces. And carved into the stone floor where it had once stood was the largest symbol yet, easily 10 feet across. The spiral pattern was so deep, so precisely cut, it must have taken months to create. And it was still wet. Not with water. With something dark and viscous that pooled in the grooves, reflecting our flashlight beams with an oily sheen. "Nobody touch anything," Erdman said, but her voice was barely a whisper. There were papers scattered around the destroyed altar. I picked one up carefully. It was a journal, pages brittle with age, written in that same Gothic German script. I could only make out fragments. Appeared on the 3rd night of excavation. 17 miners lost in the collapse. The church sent Fathers Mueller and Dietrich to consecrate the seal. It should not have eyes. That last line was written in a different hand, frantic, the words carved so deep they'd torn through to the next page. "Hale," Tor's voice was tight, "look at this." He was standing near the collapsed bell tower, pointing at something half buried in rubble. At first I thought it was a statue. Then I saw the tattered remains of cloth, the unmistakable shape of a human rib cage. Not one body. Multiple. Piled in the corner where the tower had fallen, as if they'd been trying to escape when it came down. "How old are these?" Jenkins asked. I noted carefully, examining what remained. The bones were old, yes, but preserved by the cool, dry environment of the church. And they were arranged wrong. Not scattered by collapse, but positioned. Deliberately stacked with arms interlocked, forming a barrier across a section of fallen timber, like they'd been trying to block something. "We need to leave," I said, "right now. This isn't a training site. This is a mass grave with—" The ground shook. Not an earthquake. Too localized. Too deliberate. It felt like something enormous had shifted beneath us, rolling over in its sleep. Dust rained from the damaged ceiling. The sound of groaning timber filled the nave. "Move!" Erdman screamed. We ran for the door as the church began to collapse in earnest, stone crashing behind us, beams snapping like matchsticks. I felt the door frame graze my shoulder as I dove through, hit the courtyard stones hard, rolled. The church came down with a sound like thunder, a cloud of dust and debris erupting outward. When it cleared, the building was gone. Just a pile of rubble. And sticking out of the rubble, clearly visible now, was the entrance to another tunnel, wider than the one in the cellar. Old, reinforced with steel bands that hadn't been there before. No, they had been there, just buried, hidden. And from that darkness came the breathing again. Closer now, accompanied by something else. The sound of something heavy dragging across stone.
"Get to the vehicles," Torres ordered, but his voice was shaking. "Now, go." We ran. Behind us, the dragging sound continued, methodical and patient.
like whatever was down there had all the time in the world. We'd made it halfway across the courtyard when Reeves stopped. Just stopped. "Reeves, move your ass!" Jenkins grabbed his arm, but the corporal didn't budge. He was staring at the collapsed church, eyes wide, mouth moving silently. "He's here," Reeves whispered. "He's been here the whole time, watching, waiting." "Who?" I grabbed his other arm. "Who's been here?" Reeves turned to look at me, and I saw something I'll never forget. His pupils had dilated so far his eyes looked black, and in them I saw a tunnel stretching forever, spiral symbols carved in flesh, something vast and angular that shouldn't have joints where it did, eyes that were not eyes, but openings into somewhere else. "Reeves!" Torres slapped him, hard. The corporal blinked, stumbled backward, gasping. "Jesus," he sobbed. "Jesus Christ, it's so big. It's so much bigger than—" The dragging sound stopped. Silence fell over Schwarzgrund like a held breath. Then, from the ruins of the church, something emerged. I can't describe it accurately. My mind refuses to hold on to the details. It's like trying to remember a dream. The harder I focus, the more it slips away. But I remember impressions. Too many angles. Movements that bent the wrong way. A sound like thousands of voices whispering the same word in languages that predated language. And eyes. Oh God, the eyes. Not arranged on a face, but scattered across its surface like tumors, each one tracking independently, some of them blinking horizontally, others not blinking at all, just staring with an intensity that felt like drowning. It was tall, taller than the church had been, and it was wrong in a way that made my brain hurt, that made my nose bleed instantly, that turned my legs to water. Captain Erdmann started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, something worse, the kind of laughter that comes when sanity breaks and the mind just gives up. "Der Wachter," she said softly. "They were keeping it down there. For how long? Centuries? Longer?" The thing moved forward, and where it touched the ground, the stone cracked. Not broke, changed. The molecular structure seemed to shift, becoming something that was not quite stone anymore. "Run!" Torres was dragging Erdmann now, and she was still laughing, tears streaming down her face. We ran. Behind us the thing made a sound, not a roar, a sound like tearing paper magnified 1,000 times, like the air itself was ripping apart. Jenkins made it to the first Humvee, fumbled with the door, got it open. The thing's shadow fell across him. I didn't see what happened next. Torres tackled me behind a stone wall, but I heard Jenkins scream, heard metal crumpling like tissue paper, heard a wet sound that I recognized from my medic training as the sound of a body coming apart. Then silence. I risked a look around the wall. The Humvee was gone. Not destroyed, just gone. Just like removed from existence, leaving a perfect vehicle-shaped absence in the courtyard, like someone had carefully cut it out of reality. Jenkins was there, though, or what was left of him. He was standing, but his body was wrong. Inside out, maybe? No, that wasn't quite right either. He was facing the wrong way, his back where his front should be, limbs attached at impossible angles. And he was still alive. "Help," he mouthed. No sound came out, but I could read his lips. "Help me." Then the thing reached down with something that might have been an arm, and Jenkins folded inward like origami, becoming smaller and smaller until he was just a point of compressed matter that dropped to the stones like a coin dropping. "Move," Torres whispered. "It hasn't seen us. Move slowly. Don't run. Don't make noise. We crawled on our bellies across gravel, every sound impossibly loud. Behind us, the thing was searching. Its eyes swept across the courtyard independently, each one seeing different spectrums of light, different layers of reality. One of them passed over our hiding spot. Stopped. Returned. "Oh no," Reeves whimpered. The thing tilted what might have been its head. The angle was all wrong, like watching a broken video glitch. And then it spoke. Not with sound, with thought, directly into our minds. "You woke me." The words were agony, like ice picks driven through my temples. Erdman started screaming. "I dreamed for so long. Why did you wake me?" "We're sorry," Reeves was crying, blood running from his ears. "We didn't know. We're sorry." The seal was strong. They died to make it strong. But you broke it. I understood then. The bodies in the church, the miners, they hadn't died in a collapse. They'd been sacrificed. Willingly or not, their deaths had created some kind of barrier, and we'd destroyed it when we'd entered the tunnel, when we'd disturbed the altar. We'd let it out. Torres did something then that I'll always respect, even though it was completely insane. He stood up, rifle raised, and opened fire. The bullets hit the thing and vanished. Not bounced off, just ceased to exist the moment they touched it. But it bought us time. "Go!" Torres screamed, still firing. We ran for the remaining Humvees, made it to the vehicles. Erdman was catatonic now, just staring straight ahead, still giggling softly. Reeves threw her in the back, and I jumped in beside her while Reeves hit the ignition. The engine caught. Thank God it caught. Torres was running now, the thing right behind him, moving in that horrible stop-motion way, blinking from one position to another, never quite occupying the space in between. He dove through the open door as Reeves floored it. We crashed through the village square, scattered stones flying, the Humvee's suspension screaming. Behind us, the thing reached out with that arm that was an arm, stretching impossibly far. Fingers, were they fingers? Brushing the vehicle's rear bumper. The metal where it touched began to change, to twist, to become something that was organic and writhing. Then we were on the logging road, trees blurring past, and the thing was gone. Just like that. We looked back, and Schwarzgrund was empty. No entity, no movement, just ruins and fog. Like it had never been there at all.
They found us 3 hours later on the main road, parked with the engine still running, just sitting there. Erdman was catatonic. Reeves couldn't stop shaking. Torres had aged 20 years, his hair showing streaks of white that hadn't been there that morning. And me? I just kept checking my hands, making sure they were still attached the right way. The official report listed it as a training accident. Structural collapse. Jenkins killed in the cave-in, Erdman medically retired. The 3 of us survivors received commendations for our brave efforts at rescue and recovery. Schwarzgrund was classified as a contaminated site and bulldozed flat within a week. They said there was a chemical leak, old World War II munitions. The whole valley was filled in with concrete, tons of it, enough to bury a village. Or seal something. I was discharged 6 months later on psychological grounds. PTSD, they called it. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe we did hallucinate everything in that cellar, gas leak-induced psychosis. But I don't think so. Because last month, I saw Torres at a veterans support group. He was doing better, he said, learning to sleep again, learning to live with what we saw. And then he showed me his phone. It was a news article, small, barely made the regional papers. Construction workers in Bavaria had broken through into an unknown tunnel system while building a new highway.
7 workers disappeared before the site was sealed. The official explanation was a tunnel collapse, same as always. But the location was only 30 kilometers from Schwarzgrund. Torres zoomed in on the single photo accompanying the article. It was blurry, taken quickly on someone's phone before the site was locked down. It showed the tunnel entrance, and carved into the stone around it were those same spiral symbols. Still wet. I still think about that day, about what Erdmann said in the one lucid moment she had before they took her away. She grabbed my arm, eyes suddenly clear, and whispered, "It's not the only one. The Germans knew. The church knew. That's why they built so many churches in Bavaria. Not for worship, for containment." "How many?" I asked. She smiled then, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. "Enough," she said. "Enough to make you understand why you should never go digging in old places, why some ground should stay sacred, why some seals should never be broken." She was taken away after that. I never saw her again. But sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder if there were enough churches to seal away these things, enough sacrifices made to keep them contained. How many seals are weakening? How many churches are crumbling? And what happens when they all wake up? I don't have an answer. I just know that I'll never forget the sound of that breathing in the dark, or the way Jenkins looked at me after, still alive in that impossible body, mouth forming those words, "Help me!" Some things, once you see them, you carry forever. And some things are better left buried. If this story kept you up at night, you're not alone. Drop a comment below if you'd go into that tunnel, or if you'd run like hell. And remember, hit that like button and subscribe. You never know what we'll uncover next, or what might be waiting in the dark. Sweet dreams.